And welcome to this demo. If you work with Power Apps component framework controls, you know that testing and validating changes often requires deploying controls to Power Apps environment. While this works, it can slow down the development process. To address this change, I've built PCF Workbench, a React-based application that allows developer to load, test, and debug PCF controls completely locally without requiring a connection to Power Apps. In this video, I'll walk you through the feature of PCF Workbench, demonstrate how it works, and show how it can significantly improve the PCF development and testing experience. Before we look into the solution, let's talk about the problems. When developing PCF controls, right, the typical workflow is like making code changes, building project, deploying it to Power Apps environment, opening the application, and then testing the control. So this is very time consuming process. So even if you do a very small change, it would require a deployment to test it out. If you are working on different testing scenarios, it could be like difficult because you would be setting up different data for different testing scenarios. Also, if you are working on complex PCF, debugging becomes difficult because we are trying to reproduce issue within dynamics instead of isolating them locally. This is where PCF Workbench comes in. It provides a local testing environment where developer can instantly load PCF, simulate data using mocks, test different scenarios, and validate behavior using deploying to an external environment. So this is the PCF Workbench npm package, and you can use this command for installing it and testing out locally. So I'll just run this command here in my terminal and say, so this would load browser for me. It points to localhost 3000, and this is how a PCF Workbench would look like. And all windows here are collapsible, so you can collapse windows by clicking on these icons. So here is the navigation section. Here you see the load PCF control section. Here is the main section where the PCF rendering would happen, and below are some logging, console, and performance areas. Here you would see the properties of PCF, and whenever the properties changes, you can see that in inspector, and also it reads your manifest, so you can see it over here. So let me go to one sample. So this is my contact card sample. Let me open this in terminal. So if I say npm start, so this is control where I'm trying to run this locally. So this would open a harness and it would say like your control is trying to retrieve a record. This is yet not supported, and you would see that error. And the place it's failing would be in the code where we are trying to do a API request over here. So here in the load control, we are trying to fetch contact, and then we are trying to fetch incident, trying to execute a fetch and also an action. So here where it fails, where it's not able to find context and web API locally. So if I go to my workbench, let me open it again. So in this, you see you have a load section, load PCF control section, and you also have a mock config. So this is very interesting because here you can mock each and everything. You don't need a dynamics connection at all. So let me show that in action, and we'll come back over here later. So if I want to drag and drop same control over here, I can just go to out folder, and out folder gets created whenever you build a PCF control. So I'm just trying to select out folder, This folder typically has index, manifest, and CSS. So it will say this will upload files from contact card control. So this would read out manifest, bundle, and CSS. Now look at this logs, right? So if I do a load control click, it will try to do all the networking logs over here. Let me just do it now, right? So it tries to get the contact. So it tried to do API request to contact, and you got data. Now you might be thinking, okay, did we get this data from? And also it tried to fetch all the incidents, and also it tried to execute this fetch XML, and it got data, and also it tried to execute an action, right? So whenever it loads entire control, it tries to mock all this data, and where this all data comes from, it is coming from mock config. So let me collapse this. So here you will see like preloaded entity. So I'm using these entities, so it's able to mock over here. So it tried to get contact, and it tried to get some values from here. So it went into contact, and from this data it tried to return some data, right? If I want to edit this, I can also do that using JSON. In some scenarios, you might not use this entity, right? You might have some entity specific to your projects. So if I say I have an entity called sample underscore entity, how would I mark that, right? So I will say I want new entity. Okay, so I'll say sample entity. I'll say plus. Okay, so it created a sample entity for you. You can click on add records to add new records to it, and you can add properties, whichever properties you want, and hit save. Similarly, you can add like how many records you want. If I go back, you have this entity. So if your PCF is using sample underscore entity, it would be able to mock your entity. This is how simple it is. Similarly, if you have custom actions, you can also go ahead and create custom action. You can provide an action name over here, response, and if you are using same action multiple times, you can also have conditional responses based on this rule. You can basically try to use same action again and again, and you can have a different data over here. We also have flexibility where we can basically mock APIs, Dynamics APIs, and if you want fetch XML mocking, you can also add fetch XML mocking over here. It will try to match the fetch XML and return you mock response from here. So if you want, you can come here and do changes to entire data set. If you want to create your own data set, you have flexibility where you can click on drop mock config, and you can select your JSON file with similar structure, and it would be your mocking database locally. And if I hit reset, it would remove all the additional thing which I added, and revert it back to defaults. Okay, so this is entire mocking engine. So you can use it to create entities, custom action, HTTP APIs, fetch XML, and also you have flexibility to like import and export the data. So whenever I click on refresh, right, it tries to connect to this data from the JSON, tries to execute fetch locally, it tries to execute this action locally, and tries to get data from local mock database instead of connecting to Dynamics. Here you have a console where you see all your console messages. You can see your performance. So here is the property bag window where it says, okay, these are all the properties from your control. So these are all the properties from your manifest. This is the inspector, and it also suppose like live update. So if I change this show related cases, right, it would refresh control and hide the cases from here. If you want to collapse, you can collapse and see your like PCF in full screen. You also have option to select sizes from here. Also, we have added multiple themes to it. Like we have light, we have rose, we have ocean. This is my favorite. Sage, dark, nod. So you can choose theme accordingly. So and also if you want to refresh your control, you can refresh it from here, and that would refresh control for you. Let me know your thoughts. How you like this control? Will it be useful for you when you are working on PCF control? What changes? What additional things should be added? How can we improve this control? And I hope we'll be able to get back to you on that. Thanks a lot. I hope you liked this demo of my PCF Workbench component. Thank you.